in ancient times, in the far, far north of Scandinavia, Denmark and the like, were many, many gods. And the king of those gods was Odin. Odin and his wife, Frigga. Now they had many, many sons, but the best loved by all the people and all the creatures in all of the 9 worlds was Bahldor. Bahldor was the god of light and spring and truth, and everybody loved him. People wanted to be near him. They wanted to spend time with him. He was the kind of person you want to have come to your party, and the party would only start when he arrived. But Bahldor's nights began to be filled with dread. For in his dreams he felt death itself grasping at his ankles. He felt that he was going to die soon. He confided in his mother and his father and told them. And Odin went to consult the ancient prophetess Vala, summoning her from beyond the grave. And Vala confirmed that indeed Bahldor would soon die. He would be the next down in the underworld. Frigga and Odin were beside themselves, but, Vala had said, worse still, Bahldor would die at the hand of his twin brother, his blind twin brother. Frigga told nobody this fact, and she set about seeking out every creature, sending messages here, there, up to the giants, down to the elves and the dwarves, seeking that they made a holy oath, that they pledged their allegiance to protect Bahldor, that they would cause him no harm. And surely this would defer the inevitable. Every creature swore that they would protect him. In fact, this oath worked so well that as Bahldor walked through the forest, leaves would fall from the trees and glance off him without even touching his hair. Bahldor thought about this, and he encouraged his friend to throw a pebble towards him, and it too bounced off. "Ha ha," said Bahldor. "Game on, boys, let's have some fun." And so he encouraged his friends to throw whatever was at hand. A cup of tea, a pot of coffee, some chocolate cake, axes, stones, whatever was to hand. And none of it would harm him. So this was one of their favourite games. Everybody laughed, for everybody loved Bahldor. Except Loki. Loki, the mean-spirited shapeshifter among those worlds. He saw what was happening, and he did not like not to be centre of attention. Wherever there was trouble, there was Loki. Whatever happened, Loki was usually involved. And so he set about finding a little loophole in this. He changed himself into the being of an old woman, and he sought out Frigga, and she gave him a meal as he knew she would, and over the meal he asked her about this oath. "Surely, dear, not everybody pledged this oath." "Yes," said Frigga, "everybody loves my Bahldor. The only thing perhaps is the mistletoe at the gate of Valhalla, but what harm could such a small plant do?" This was what Loki had been waiting for. As soon as he was free, straight to the gates of Valhalla, and there on the oak tree was the mistletoe. He cut a bough from it, and he fashioned an arrow. He went back to the clearing, and there was Bahldor, his friends, and on the edge of the clearing sat Bahldor, Bahldor's blind twin brother. "Bahldor, why do you not play?" said Loki. "Come on, have some fun." "I cannot see. I listen." "Well," said Loki, "listen to this. I'll help you. You can play. Stand up, take my bow, and I will point it at your brother." And so, Bahldor stood, held the bow placed in his hands, and drew back the string. Bahldor looked at his brother and smiled and waited for the arrow to bounce off. But as Bahldor released the string, the arrow flew and flew and flew straight into the heart of Bahldor, and he fell to the floor, dead. The god of light and truth and spring was gone. Everything went black. "My son!" Frigga's cry rang out across the land, and grief struck everybody. Funeral preparations were made. A boat brought, a pyre of wood upon it, and Baldor's body laid upon it. And Odin himself took a torch and stepped onto the boat, and bending low over his son's body, whispered something in his ear. Nobody heard. They were too busy grieving and crying. And he set fire to the pyre, climbed off the boat, and the huge giants pushed it out into the water. It burst into flames, filled the world with light, and then sank down under the water. Frigga was inconsolable. Her son, her most beloved son, he shouldn't have favourites, but I guess she probably did. She was inconsolable, and her other son, one of the others, Hermodor, he could not bear to see his mother like this. He went to Odin and he begged that he could borrow his 8-legged horse Sleipnir and take it down to the underworld to try and bring Bahldor back. He rode and he rode 10 days and 10 nights across the lands, across the Bifrost, the Rainbow Bridge that crosses into the underworld. He came across down and down and down, and there the goddess Hel barred his way. "I know who you've come for," she said, "but he stays here, he is mine." Hermodor pleaded. "Everybody wants him back. Surely there must be a way." And Hel relented, but there was a condition. There's always a condition. Everybody must cry for him. Everyone must weep. Every one of those creatures, every one of those beings must weep. Then I will release him. Seizing this hope, Hermodor rode back on the horse 10 days, 10 nights, came to his mother, and she too felt hope. They sent out the messengers, asking everyone, "Will you cry for Bahldor? Will you? Will you?" The rocks, the waters, the trees themselves wept for him. All except one. In a cave on a hill in the darkness sat a giantess. Some say it was Loki in disguise. Some say it wasn't. But that giantess, when she was approached, "Why should I cry for Bahldor? What has he done for me here in my darkness?" And so with her words, her dry eyes, Bahldor had to remain in the underworld. Now, that could be the end of the story. But with Baldor's death, all manner of things were unleashed on the earth. The beginning of Ragnarok, the twilight of the gods, earthquakes and floods and waves and an outpouring of wrath. It was the beginning of the end of the world. But that thing that Odin whispered in his son's ear, some people say that Odin knew that when the old order had passed away and a new one created, that Bahldor would rise again. What Odin whispered in Baldur's ear, no man or beast would ever hear. What Odin whispered bending low, no man